Today we are going to be talking about garden journaling, what the purpose is, why I think you should start it yourself, and some of the things that I'm doing in my journal, just to give you some inspiration. So if you're new here, we welcome you. My name is Reagan, and here at this channel we cover a few topics, but we mainly stay in one category, which is farming, and how you can grow food right from your backyard. We own a bunch of chickens, we have a few gardens, and I do some build projects here and there that I think you guys would like to watch. If you would, check out my channel, hit subscribe, and I hope you enjoy this video. So today we're going to be talking about garden journaling. This is a new project that I'm picking up this year, something I've never done before, but I've learned a lot about it in the past few months, just adding little notes and details to my journal to prepare for this coming spring. But I think this is a video that needs to go out to you guys now because spring is coming. It's like rolling up super quick. And with that, this is a time when we need to start jotting down our notes and things that we've just learned through the whole year. Keeping a detailed record of your garden season and everything that you learned, all your mistakes and your wins, helps you come back to it later on and be like, okay, so how did I fix this problem? And what happened after this? How did those do? All those details can be documented in your garden journal if you wish. It's your journal. You can put whatever you want in here, whatever you're growing, whatever you're doing. Put it in this garden journal and keep a detailed record system so you can come back to this in years to come, maybe just a month from now or just a few days. However you need to come back to your notes, these are here, ready for you, waiting. So let's get into my garden journal and show you a couple of the things that I've already added to mine. So in the front of my garden journal, I just put a date of the years. That way I know when I open this up, maybe whoever knows how many years from now, I'm able to go and look at it and be like, okay, this was 2024. And what happened this year? What did I grow? What did my garden look like? All those things will be documented in this journal. So first of all, I just did a quick introduction. I think this is a good idea just to have in there when you open this years from now. You'll know, okay, what was my reasoning behind starting a garden journal? Having that in the introduction is just super neat to look back on. But also having to the side of that, I have my goals. A few of those being grow what is needed. Last year I grew a lot of things that I didn't need in my garden and I wasted a lot of space on that. So this year one of my goals is to grow specific things that I'm going to grow that I know that I need and that I know I will use. Another one of that is maximizing my spaces. Don't have a ton of space here on our property, but with those areas that I do have, I'd really like to cultivate it and use as much of it as I can. But also another one of those is not letting things go to waste. Last year, I didn't do the best with harvesting, and a few of the products I grew went to waste. So being able to have those goals and to look back on that and see if I achieved them, it's just something neat that I think is useful to have at the beginning of your journal. One of the big things that I highly recommend is planning your layout for your garden. This is mine. This is my flower garden. And in this layout, I have listed all my beds, not specific spacing. If you want to be detailed like that, you do you. But for me, I just did some shapes and filled in where I want to put my flowers and my plants that I want to grow. So in here I have my areas for my sunflowers, my morning glories, my zinnias, and from experience of growing last year, I know how much space that those need, but also I did some research on the seed packets that I have by taking inventory, which is something we'll get into after this. Taking inventory of my seeds, I was able to look at all of them and see the spacing and where I thought that they would fit best, and I came up with this plan, this layout. Having this right here in my journal is very helpful because whenever it comes time, it's March right now, but when it comes time to start planting things in my garden, I will know the plan that I had, why I had that plan, because I'm, again, keeping records and notes and remembering. It's a way of retaining information that you learned. Usually we forget a lot of things because life gets busy and you're not going to remember all those tiny details. So keeping a garden journal helps you just keep track of those little milestones that you want to remember from years and years from now. But to have this in my garden journal just helps me look at this and remember why I drew this up and how I want my garden to look for this year. So this is going to be helpful in the next month or two, but this is also going to be a really cool thing to look back to in a few years from now. Being able to look over everything that I grew and remember how those plants grew, how they developed, how the harvest went. It's just another reason I really love having a garden journal. The next thing I did was I took inventory of all the seeds that I want to grow, all the seeds that I have, all the seeds that I plan on planting or don't plan on planting. Taking inventory of your seeds is a really helpful way for you to save some money as well. I recommend you do this all now before we get into planting season, because you don't want to be last minute. Unless that's how you roll, you do you. But I'm one who likes to be a little bit more prepared, and it just helps you further down the road, being a little less stressed and rushing around in that garden season. When you got to get plants in, you're not going to be waiting around for seeds or things that you need. So taking inventory of my seeds, I'm able to figure out what I'm planting this year, and also another way I can look back and remember everything that I did plant. To the side of that, I have a monthly tracker, and as you can see, it just goes with the rows where the seeds are. I just go over a row, and I have all the months up here. My months span from April to November. That's a pretty good growing season for us. I will not have like plants growing right in April. Usually my plants will go in the ground by May, but having that in April, and I also usually don't have plants till November either, but having a decent size plot of room to grow with that, I just went ahead and did from April to November. So on this I'll just basically keep track of what seeds I did sow, when I sowed the seeds, how the growth period was, when I started harvesting and how long the harvest season was, and then whether they died or I just didn't plant them. Different colors corresponding to different things. Just another useful way I can keep track of my plants' production rate. So the next thing I did was weather. I'm not one for daily tracking things, so this is going to be a little bit tricky for me, but it doesn't have to be exact. It just helps me remember when it was sunny, when it was rainy, when it was cloudy, if we had a frost, when the first and last frost was. Those are some things that you want to keep track of when you're a gardener. But if I am able to look back and see July 11th and say, oh, it rained that day, that means I don't have to water my garden with a sprinkler over the next 2 days or so, depending upon the weather, how hot it is, all that stuff. Keeping track of the weather just helps you in that moment. Not necessarily something in the future, but in that moment I can look back on it and remember, oh, okay, so it rained this week. I shouldn't have to water. When we move into the months, I'm going to categorize each of my months. Obviously, have a bold paper just showing of what date it is, what month it is, if it's April, May, all that stuff. And then it leads into, I have a calendar here. Calendar just helps me keep little notes, jot down specific things that I want to just remember that day I did that project, or that day I pulled those weeds, blah, 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 all that stuff. Anything you want on your garden journal calendar is very much accessible to you. Throughout the months, I'll be keeping notes, obviously. Having that organized list is very useful to you. I already started taking some notes. It's not April yet, but I had to jot a few things down that I wanted to remember. And one of those things is I'm attempting to plant bulbs this year. Never planted bulbs before, so it's a new experience for me. So having those notes written down and making like a chart just to know when I would have blooms and be able to harvest flowers, it's just another way that's really helpful for me to remember the things that I jotted down. Maybe a few months from now I may not remember all those things that I researched for 4 hours, but if I just have a few notes to look back on and re-spark that memory of mine, it's just a useful way to look back and to have those notes. Helps you remember something that you may have forgotten. At the back of my journal, I'd like to have a plant study system, which I think is going to be really cool just to look back on the development of the plants, how they did. So let's just say I grew a sunflower. Throughout the months, I would jot down notes for the sunflower. And by the end of the year, I would go through those months and retain all that information and write it down on a specific piece of paper for that sunflower. And it would be a plant study that I could go back onto and remember, okay, so this is how much sun it needs, this is how much rain it needs. I'm not going to do that specific detailed notes, but just metaphorically speaking. When they bloomed, how many heads were on that sunflower, all those things, but mainly if I liked it or not. Just having that information, if I liked it, being able to go back and remember what I did to it to get it to that point of beauty and bloom. As a gardener, it helps me develop my skills more. Whenever you have multiple gardens at once, you're keeping track of so many different things, and remembering that specific milestone for that plant is really difficult. So being able to jot things down and write things down in your journal is just another way to retain that knowledge and always remember what happened for years and years to come. So this is my garden journal and everything I'm doing in mine throughout this year. I hope this inspired you if you were interested in getting a garden journal for yourself. I hope this, helps you go out and actually do it this time. It might take some work, but it's your journal and it can be customized to however you want it to be. This is how I want mine to be, how I want mine to go. Your garden space is your garden space. This also applies to your journal. So I challenge you to go out and get yourself a garden journal. As gardeners, I think this is a really cool way to keep record of everything that we're doing in our space. And it's also a good way to look back on each season, each year, to be able to remember how that went and how that made you feel. As a gardener, it's very rejuvenating to get back out into the warm summer sun and feel the dirt, and I just hope that this is a window of opportunity for me in the future to look back on that season and that year of my life and of that garden and see how it went. If you already do a garden journal, put some comments down below of just the things that you do in your garden. Maybe it'll spark some inspiration for somebody else, some other gardener who's wanting to get into this, but they don't know how and they don't know how they want it to look. Like I said, doesn't have to be perfect. It's perfect in your eyes, and however that looks for you is completely your choice. I know your garden journal will be beautiful. I don't think you're going to regret taking notes and keeping record of everything that happened in your space. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this video inspired you and educated you a bit on garden journals, what they are, what they're used for, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.